Okay, so I will pass over to Paul and Craig. Paul will start by just telling you a little bit about the University of Aberdeen, and then Craig will tell us a little bit about Robert Gordon University, just to introduce both universities that are located here in Aberdeen. And then we'll move on to talk a little bit more about programs and admissions. So, Paul, I'll start with you. Can you just tell us very quickly a quick introduction to the University of Aberdeen?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, first of all, for joining us this afternoon here in Scotland, and hopefully it's not too early for you over in Mexico. The University of Aberdeen is the third oldest university in Scotland and was founded in 1495. We currently have around 14,500 students with around 120 plus different nationalities. So the university offers a wide array of programs both at undergraduate, postgraduate and research, and classes itself is a research intensive school. So for students coming from Mexico and coming to study a number of our programs, they will meet with academic experts and research experts from a variety of different academic fields. Hopefully your time in Aberdeen will then give you the opportunity to learn not only the information and the theory, but also how to apply that and develop your own research skills. At this moment in time, we have quite a large Mexican student community, which hopefully will enable you a good chance to fit in, integrate well, and make some friends for life. I'll hand you over to Craig.
Hi everyone, my name is Craig Evans. I'm here from Robert Gordon University. So we are also in Aberdeen, just the other side of the city from University of Aberdeen, where we are sat at the moment. So we are a slightly more modern university. Our roots go back to the 1800s, and we evolved through the 20th century until 1992, when we were given full university status by the government here in the UK. We also offer a wide range of postgraduate and undergraduate courses in a range of different disciplines, from engineering through to business, computer science, arts, and also architecture as well. Some very popular courses with Mexican students. We have a lot of vocational teaching at Robert Gordon University. So we like to teach by doing, and all of our courses are very career-focused courses. So they are built and designed and taught with careers in mind, which is one of the reasons why we boast such an impressive employability rate compared to other UK universities. For undergraduate, we are also Teaching Excellence Framework Gold status university as well. So we have some of the best teaching in the UK when it comes to undergraduate teaching as well. So that's Robert Gordon University in a small nutshell. And myself and Paul are happy to answer any questions you've got on those institutions as well.
Great, thank you very much, Paul and Craig. Can I ask you, first of all, Paul, which areas of study at University of Aberdeen, like which programs do you find are most popular for our Mexican students?
Yes, so certainly here in Aberdeen, we have quite a number of programs that are appealing to our Mexican student community. Obviously, where maybe some of you have found out about Aberdeen through the One initiative and the Study Aberdeen initiative is obviously around our energy programs. So the University of Aberdeen's energy programs are not only focused around oil and gas, but also in renewables. And these cover a number of different, disciplines, be it engineering, geosciences, business and finance, as well as law and some of the legal side of things. Okay. Outside of energy, we also have a growing number of students from the region coming to study a number of our world-leading health science programs. So Aberdeen is probably known as a city for oil and gas and energy, but one of the other things that both universities offer is a very strong health sciences initiative.
Super. And Craig, at RGU, at Robert Gordon University, are there particular programs or subject areas where you find most of your Mexican students are based?
Yeah, so a lot of our Mexican students come to Robert Gordon University to focus primarily on energy. So we have a lot for oil and gas, petroleum production, engineering, drilling and welling, subsea engineering. But we are also seeing quite a few come through for things like oil and gas accounting and finance, oil and gas law, and we also do computing for oil and gas as well. So that's where most of our Mexican students are focusing at the moment.
And I think it's true for both universities that most of our Mexican students are doing postgraduate master's programs. Paul, can you tell me a little bit about master's programs in the UK in terms of how long they take and what they kind of consist of?
Yeah, so Aberdeen and Robert Gordon offer a range of different master's programs, with the vast majority lasting around 1 year or 12 months. This is slightly different maybe to other parts of the world. Maybe most familiar to Mexican students is maybe the US system of maybe around 18 months to 2 years. The Scottish and UK system of 12 months is designed to be quite an intensive career-focused programme that enables students to come along, upskill, learn new techniques and new disciplines, and then take that back into further study or the workplace. So the average 12 months for your standard master's programme tends to have around 9 months of class-based learning, and followed by 3 months either of a project or dissertation. That would be something to look into depending on the programme and the university you are looking to study at as to how exactly that looks.
Yeah.
But usually the 12 months, with the 9 and 3 split.
Very good. And Craig, can you tell me, in terms of applying to university in the UK, what's the application process like for universities here?
Yeah, so for undergraduate courses for applying, we would usually recommend programs such as the UCAS website, which allows you to apply for any UK university. So if you are looking to study undergraduate at either Robert Gordon University or University of Aberdeen, UCAS is the way to go. Quite a lot of universities are also on the Common application. So if you're more familiar with the Common application and you're using that, you can also find a range of different UK universities on Common App, which might be a slightly more convenient way for you if you're using that already. When it comes to the postgraduate side of things, for Robert Gordon University, we have a direct application form on our website, and I believe that's the same with University of Aberdeen as well, yes. So you would go to the respective websites for both institutions. Would complete the form with your name, your details. What we ask for is we ask for copies of your degree certificate. If you don't currently have that degree certificate, you can tell us what your predicted grade will be, and we'll make you what's called a conditional offer, which will then become unconditional when you receive your certificate later down the line. We also require a proof of English. So for Robert Gordon University, it's 6.5 at IELTS. Is it the same for University of Aberdeen? Yep. And again, you would give us that certificate once you have completed that test. You put all of that through the system, and then, as I say, you get an unconditional offer at the very end once you've met all of the conditions. Once you've done that, you then pay a deposit to secure your place on that particular course. I don't know if there's any differences for University of Aberdeen at all.
No, so I think a lot of what Craig has said is, very similar to us here in Aberdeen, along the lines of a direct application, a fairly quick turnaround as well. Where we have a slight difference is probably in Aberdeen, we don't ask for the payment of a deposit. But that would be maybe the main difference about the application process for both schools.
And when should you apply? If you're, because I understand master's programs usually start in September, some have a January start. So if you're applying if you wanted to study in September, when should you apply to the university?
So, certainly both schools have their application systems open just now for entry in September 2019, as well as January 2020. Apologies there, the year is passing me by. Certainly I always advise our students to make the application as soon as possible, but most importantly when is convenient for them. A lot of the documentation regarding English language and financial documentation can be supplied at a later date. It is often easier to process applications for funding, particularly with CONICET or SENER, when you have an application. So I would advise making those applications as soon as possible. You can always reach out to the universities, either myself or Craig, where we would be happy to talk you through the process in more detail or answer any specific deadline questions.
The only other things I would add to that is I would encourage you to apply as early as you can, because then that gives you more time, as Paul was saying, to submit applications to funding bodies. But it also gives you more time to do research on where you might want to live, which institution you might want to go to, the modules, and make sure that you're applying for the right course, which is going to suit your teacher, your learning style, and your assessment style as well. And I also think it's important to remember that by making an application to an institution, you're not being tied into any sort of agreement. You can always withdraw that application later on. So if you were to apply for both Robert Gordon University and University of Aberdeen, you can always withdraw one of the applications later on. So it's a good idea to get the applications in, get the offers, look at where you stand, apply for the funding bodies, and then decide where you want to go later on.
Very good. Okay, so those were some just kind of introductory questions. If any of the students who have logged in would like to post a question, please feel free to use the messenger icon. If you click on the little bubble, type in a question, and then I can address those questions to Paul and Craig. In the meantime, I just want to go back and talk a little bit about the scholarship situation and the process around applying for funding to study here in Aberdeen. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, so certainly, I mean, as Craig and myself have both mentioned, having an application and an acceptance to a programme at the university is key in processing your scholarship and funding opportunities. Now, obviously, a large majority of our students were very fortunate to come through the CONACYT-SENER funding route, though there is a number of opportunities open to students in Mexico. Alongside CONACYT, there may be FUNED, FIDER, or also the Chevening scheme. When students are making their application, it is always important to keep an eye on the deadlines for the applications internally in Mexico. So throughout the year, there will be a number of calls, both regional and national, by CONACYT-SENER, and it is important to see where your programme and where your region fits into this. That is where having the application ready and the documentation supplied by the university staff is key. The university has a link both on Aberdeen and Robert Gordon to the various funding bodies' websites, and we always ask you that you keep an eye on that. When we hear about funding calls and we're notified by our partners, we will also tend to promote that through our Facebook pages as well as direct communication. When applying, I know a lot of the funders expect you to have an offer live in the system, as well as a detailed offer letter. That offer letter requires your personal details, your course programme, as well as information relating to that, usually along the lines of course start date, tuition cost, as well as language of instruction. So I know many of you maybe have looked at this already. You may have even been in contact with myself or Craig or one of our colleagues. This is something that we have to hand and are happy to add to. If you have any questions relating to this, it is always worth sending an email to the relevant university. As part of the process, both myself and Craig keep in regular contact with CONACYT-SENER as well as the other funding bodies, and are more than happy to give you our updated information, as well as providing you with the relevant documents.
Very good. So does anyone have any questions you would like to ask Paul or Craig? Like I said, if you just type your question into the text box, we can answer your questions for you.
We can see while Andreas is typing, I think certainly myself and Craig can give you some update as to when we will next be in Mexico.
Yeah, that'd be useful.
So we will be participating in the FPP education fairs in February. The fairs will run from the 10th of February through until the 19th of February across 5 major cities. So I apologise, I don't know where you are dialing in from, but we will be in Puebla, Monterrey, Guadalajara, Mexico City, and Querétaro. In the coming days, we will make sure that we put that information online, and we will be able to send out some information to all of you who have participated with that.
Yeah. Great. So, Andres, your question is about, that's a University of Aberdeen program, Environmental Partnership Management, which is in our School of Geosciences. And Andres asks if that's a one-year program.
Yes, so the Environmental Partnership Programme is a one-year programme for our students here in Aberdeen. It is a nice balanced programme in respect that it has a focus on the geoscience and environmental aspect, but also works very closely with some of the modules from our management programmes. So it gives you a very practical knowledge around the challenges in the environmental sector, but also gives you some skills as to how best to apply that.
Can I also just add a detail about that question, Andres? Last year we had a Mexican student come to study that program who is now coming back to do a PhD. Yeah. So she obviously had a good experience, and I think she has got funding, a scholarship to do a PhD in this area of study as well. So if what Paul can do is we can arrange to put you in touch with that student who is also from Mexico. If you have questions, that might be a useful contact for you.
And one of the things, Andreas, to just remember is that this programme has both a September and a January start. And I think this is valid for all students. I'm sure Craig will reiterate this, but when applying, if you have the opportunity to maybe have a different start date, this often can help with your funding. So you don't need to worry too much about maybe I can't make January, I can't make September of this immediate intake. Andreas has also asked, I'm a biologist, do you think the particular programme is a good fit? So certainly, when you look at our entry requirements, we look for students in areas such as agriculture, ecology, environmental science, forestry, geography. So as a biologist, this will be something that is very good as a fit. What we like to see both at Robert Gordon and Aberdeen is students coming often from different disciplines and different subject areas. It adds a lot to the educational experience in each university, because as a biologist you may have a different approach to that as somebody who's coming from a geography or geology.
Yeah. A lot of our courses at Robert Gordon University are what we call conversion courses. So you can come in with a different academic background to the subject that you're going into. So if you are studying something like biology and you wanted to maybe study business, or if you wanted to maybe look at something like computer science or something like that, it is possible in many cases to come onto a different discipline at master's degree level from what you've maybe studied at undergraduate level as well. So it's always worth asking the question, if there's a discipline you're interested in and you don't have a background, contacting myself and Paul, and we can put you in contact with the relevant admissions tutors to see whether what you've got matches up with what we offer on the programme.
Excellent. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions at this time? Please feel free to type in your question. In the meantime, I'd just like to ask Paul and Craig, moving away from the academics, in terms of students, Mexican students in particular, or students from other parts of Latin America, making the move to somewhere like Aberdeen, what do you find most of them find, what do they like about Aberdeen, and what do they find the most challenging?
I think certainly from having spoken to some of our Mexican students and students from across the region on campus, I think one thing that they enjoy about both Aberdeen and Robert Gordon and the location to the city is its convenience. So I know, having visited, Mexico City a number of times in the last year, that traffic and general day-to-day hustle and bustle is very, very much part of, your planning and your day-to-day life. One thing that our students really enjoy in Aberdeen is it's a very safe, peaceful, quite relaxing commute to your course and commute into the city. So students can balance a nice work-life balance. They can get to the university in time to study, but also make sure in the evenings, if they wish to work or enjoy themselves socialising, it's very easy to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I come at this from a similar perspective to yourselves, even though I've not come from Mexico, I've come from down in London. I've found moving to Aberdeen to be really genuinely very easy. I sort of landed, I started getting involved in some of the social activities that happen locally. I found the people in Aberdeen to be very, very welcoming, and I've got a very big pool of friends in Aberdeen now. We do a lot of things socially, such as music nights. We had a barbecue on the beach yesterday, which, if you know the temperatures in Aberdeen at the moment, is quite an unusual thing for us to do. I would also echo what Paul said about Aberdeen being very safe as well. I've lived all around the UK, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, Aberdeen for me is the safest place I've ever lived. I go out quite a lot to some of the bars and things like that on a Friday night. I can honestly say I've never seen any trouble at any of the bars that I've been to. Likewise, when I walk home from work, I have to walk through a park after the sun's gone down. I never ever worry about my safety in these places, because, as I say, Aberdeen is a very safe and secure place to be. So yeah, I could definitely endorse, as an outsider, Aberdeen as a place to live. It's a very, very good place to live, and I would recommend anyone to sort of come and live here.
And I think certainly one thing that I've noticed with our students is that our students who come from Mexico tend to have a very outgoing approach to their studies, and also involving themselves in the campus life. So I know that a number of the students get involved with societies, they meet regularly. So I know that a few months ago there was Day of the Dead celebrations held by Mexican students, as well as finding out a number of different societies and sports teams. So on a Wednesday afternoon, I play soccer, and there's a few of our Mexican students have joined in. So I am getting regularly beaten by Mexicans who are much better at football than me. But it's a really nice opportunity, not only to know other students, but people in the wider community.
I think people in Aberdeen as well, they're used to people coming from overseas. Both universities, as we said in the introductions, have a wide range of different nationalities on campus. But because of the oil and gas industry as well, the local people are used to seeing people coming from overseas. So Aberdeen is a very kind of multicultural area as well.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so Julio has asked if we have programs in business or marketing related programs, which I know both universities have. So Paul, if I start with you, can you just give me a quick overview of our business school, and then Craig, same from you at RGU.
So here in Aberdeen, our business school has quite a wide, comprehensive range of programs, as well as nationalities represented amongst the staff and student body. Some of the programs are more popular for our students in Mexico relate to the energy industry. They rely along things such as the MBA in energy management, as well as areas such as oil and gas enterprise management, and probably our most famous program in the region is the MSc Petroleum, Energy, Economics and Finance. That program itself is designed in partnership not only with our academics but local industry figures. And one of the program coordinators is seen by many as one of the most famous oil and gas economists in the region, Professor Alexander Kemp. He has been involved in oil and gas economic forecasting since the 1970s and 80s, and is very much still seen as the go-to person. So in the last few years, with the kind of slightly changing market in oil and gas, particularly in the North Sea, in the northeast of Scotland, he has been very much in demand for his opinion, his research, and offers students the opportunity to learn from a truly global figure.
Excellent.
Yes, and at Robert Gordon University, likewise, we have a very wide range of business courses. So we have courses such as business management, that are quite broad and focus on the management side. We have master's degrees in accounting and finance. We also have business degrees focusing on the oil and gas sector as well, such as MSc Accounting for oil and gas, MSc Law for oil and gas, and MSc kind of Computing for oil and gas as well, IT for oil and gas. So we have those ones. We also have a wide range of marketing specific courses if you are interested in marketing. So we have an MSc in International Marketing Management, and we also have an MSc in Digital Marketing as well. Then we also have some quite niche courses on top of that. So we have the MSc, for instance, in Fashion Management, and we have MScs in other kind of very niche areas as well within business management. All of them are very practically taught. So you are getting expertise from the industry. You have people come in, do guest lectures. You have a lot of practical activities as well. So we have a very, very wide range of business and marketing programs that you can engage with.
Excellent. Okay, so please keep sending in your questions. The other question I had for you guys was about where students typically live when they come to Aberdeen. Do the universities offer student accommodation, or do students live off campus in private accommodation?
So,
Paul, we'll start with
yeah,
you.
so I mean, both universities have a range of accommodation offerings. Both Aberdeen and Robert Gordon have accommodation for our international postgraduate students. At the University of Aberdeen, the accommodation offers a guarantee. So provided our students apply by a deadline, which is usually quite late into the application cycle, you will be made an offer of accommodation. So the accommodation in Aberdeen tends to be a single study room, usually in apartment style. So you usually live with 3 or 4 other students. They tend to be postgraduate or PhD students. So they'll be of a similar workload and a similar age and maybe a similar focus on their studies. A number of our students as well will choose to live off campus, and this is entirely up to yourself. So in Aberdeen, there is a number of both private and student-focused accommodation in the city that can offer students a high quality of life. One thing I would always recommend is that with the university accommodation is that this has a guarantee and there's no requirement to pay any fees up front, and also puts your mind at rest as you have somewhere to stay the first day you arrive.
Yeah.
Myself, Craig and Brian can certainly count on experiences of students arriving with nowhere to stay, and it can be an extra thing to stress yourself out. I don't think if I were to move to Mexico, for instance, it would be a thing I'd be brave enough to try. But certainly the accommodation is something that can help make the transition to life in Scotland that little more easy.
You usually tend to find with accommodation, student accommodation, is that you'll be in a position with lots of people who are in the same position as yourselves, living away from home for the first time, maybe living in the UK for the first time, maybe. So you've got that common ground, something to talk about, and you can support each other as well if you are kind of wanting to settle into a new area. Robert Gordon University, we have different types of accommodations. We have one set of accommodation which is on and around the campus. So our campus is outside of the city centre, so it's quite a quiet lifestyle. So if you're the kind of learner that enjoys focusing on your studies and you're not maybe too interested in the social side of things, that's absolutely perfect for you. We also have accommodation in the city centre as well. So if you like to be at the heart of where the action is, where there's lots of entertainment and things to do, then that's perfect for you. And if you are maybe stuck in between, we've got accommodation which is halfway as well. So 2.5 kilometres from the city and 2.5 kilometres from the campus as well. So there's a wide range of choices that you have if you want to study with us.
Super. Okay, so the next question from Andreas is about cost of living expenses. So how expensive is it to live in Aberdeen, and is there public transport? So firstly, on the cost, obviously you have your accommodation, and then you have your normal like food and like day-to-day costs. What would be the, let's say, per month, what would you recommend a student should budget for the kind of essentials?
So I think in answer to Andre's question, I mean, I know that for instance, the students who are on funding through Conaseed and Sinair, their stipend covers all aspects of their expenses in Aberdeen very comfortably. At this moment in time, Aberdeen is probably the most cost effective it has been in a number of years for a variety of reasons. So I know that there will be obviously day-to-day expenses, there will be more maybe than you would expect in Mexico, but certainly less than other parts of the UK, most particularly London or Manchester or even Edinburgh, and the capital of Scotland. I think I would recommend students budget for around £800 a month in terms of living expenses and accommodation and travel. One of the benefits, there is a very comprehensive public transport system across the city, but Aberdeen is a very compact city. So I live quite close to Robert Gordon's campus, but I actually walk to work most days, and it takes around 45 minutes to walk across the city. So if you're looking to maybe make some savings and spend your money, trying out whiskey and fish and chips and iron brew, all the Scottish things you've heard around, you don't need to worry too much about using buses.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one thing that I've noticed since moving here as well, is that the city is very easy to get around. So I don't own a car in Aberdeen. There's schemes where you can rent cars by the hour. You can also cycle around the city. So there's cycle lanes that take you around from the city centre to Robert Gordon, if that's what you want to do as well. So yeah, I would definitely say that it's a very cost-effective city to live in. I grew up in London, and I'd say that Aberdeen is probably sort of nearly half the price of London, and I would say you get excellent value for money for living here.
Excellent. Okay, the next question is about with the student visas, and actually we can talk a little bit more about student visas, but specifically a student who is married, is it possible to take your partner, your spouse, with you to the UK if you're coming here on a Tier 4 student visa?
So yes, certainly, as all students coming from Mexico who require the visa have the opportunity, particularly, you know, if they mention they're married, to take their spouse with them. They would be classed as what's known as a dependent in terms of the visa application process. The visa application process happens near the end of the general admission into the university, usually around 13 weeks prior to the start of the programme. Our universities work with a number of representatives, both in country as well as experts here in Aberdeen who can assist with this. So certainly when it comes to visas, if you're looking for support around preparing documentation, both of yourself and a spouse, we can put you in touch with local experts who can help you with this. We appreciate this is one of the more challenging aspects, making sure you have your paperwork and your documentation. Yeah. I know that a number of students at both universities tend to have their spouse with them, and this is something that they can look at on the Tier 4 website of the UK government.
Yeah. I think it's true too for children.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. If you're coming with your family, it's also possible. It does cost though, because you have to pay for health insurance for each family member.
Dependency chart, and it's like a
so it is
payment.
Expensive, but it is possible. Yeah. Is the message essentially for people coming with family members.
And one thing, I mentioned about our in-country representatives. So both myself and Craig, we work with two agents in common. We work with Across the Pond and ANZ. They would be able to give you assistance, particularly around what documentation, as they have helped many students from Mexico, not only to both our universities, but across the UK.
Yeah.
So they
and that doesn't cost the student anything.
No,
so that's a free service.
That's a free service that they can help you with, and it's particularly when it comes to visas, something that our Mexican students tend to get the benefit of their experience.
And when you're in the UK on a Tier 4 visa, are you allowed to work?
You are, yeah. So you can work during term time for a maximum of 20 hours per week. So if you are requiring a little bit of extra income, if you're self-funding your living expenses and things, you would be able to work for 20 hours per week during term time. And it's one of the good things about Aberdeen, actually, is it boasts some of the highest part-time wages for students in the whole of the UK. So if you work for those 20 hours a week, you can get yourself some very, very good wages when you're studying.
Okay, so we are almost out of time, so we will stay online for a few more minutes to answer any other questions you have. We are also recording this session, so fingers crossed if that's worked. We will be able to send you a link to the presentation, as well as to the other people who registered but who didn't log in. Yeah, like I said, we'll stay online for a few more minutes if you have any more questions. As Paul and Craig mentioned, there is the studyaberdeen.com website, which has a lot of information about both Aberdeen City and also the universities and the programs. Or you can visit the University of Aberdeen website or Robert Gordon University website for more information about those two specific universities. Maybe before we finish, if you could just repeat again because both, Paul and Craig, both universities will be in Mexico in February at the education fairs. So if we are in one of the cities near where you live, it would be great to meet you in person to talk a little bit more. Paul, have you got the dates of the cities?
So I will make sure that I add this to our website in the coming days, and we can also send it in an email along with this recording. We will be in Puebla on the 10th of February, in Monterrey on the 12th of February, Guadalajara on the 14th of February, so you can come along and say hello on Valentine's Day. And then on the 15th and 16th, we will be, or sorry, I apologize, the 16th and 17th, we will be in Mexico City. And also on the 19th, we will be in Querétaro.
I think with those events, if you do attend the events, we will be under the banner of Study in Aberdeen. So if you're looking for the Robert Gordon University stand or University of Aberdeen stand, we won't be there. But if you look for Study in Aberdeen, both of us will be at that particular stand.
And an opportunity that has maybe not been mentioned, but during the fairs, we will maybe have alumni from both institutions at the events. So if you want to hear from some recent graduates of ours about their experience both at Robert Gordon and the University of Aberdeen, then it is a great opportunity to come along. Last year we had a similar initiative and it worked very well. The students were able to talk about their own experience both in the university and life in Scotland, and also the opportunities they had for travel around the UK, which was some of the most interesting discussion, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's everything we wanted to talk about today. So unless you have any more questions, we'll call it a day. So thank you everyone for logging in. I hope you found it useful. We will probably look to do another one of these sessions in the new year, in January. So if you have any tips or content that you would like us to cover or to focus more on, we would welcome your feedback on this type of session. And we look forward to either hopefully seeing you in Mexico in February, or hopefully some of you as well here in Aberdeen in the near future. So I'd just like to thank Paul and Craig as well for joining us today. And like I said, I hope you found it useful. And unless there's any more questions, we'll log off now. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.